Welcome to a Healing Peace podcast. My name is Kimir Baker. I am an overcomer, writer, speaker, and God enthusiast. I am fueled by helping women achieve their emotional healing so that they can live the abundant life God has for them. In this podcast series, we provide faith-based inspiration to mend from emotional hurt, along with tools and tips for emotional wellness. In your journey, as you apply these tools and tips, you will begin to live the transformed life that you always desired. In fact, you will possess a new you. Hello, family. During this season on the Healing Peace podcast, we discussed several times the 4 principles for emotional wellness. Our 4 principles can be applied to all situations. When we continually put these principles in practice, we can manage our emotions in a way that allows us to be victorious. How are you doing with applying them to your everyday life? Do you remember what they are? For this episode, I am going to once again remind you of the value of the 4 principles. Take a moment to listen to highlights from podcast number 42, A New You, episode 6, Living a Purposeful Life. In this episode, I introduced the 4 principles during an internet radio interview. And so I had to learn to distinguish what was true versus what was the reality that I created for myself, because my pain was so powerful and it was suffocating the truth out of me. But that's something that I still deal with. Yeah. Because of working through my emotions. Work in progress. Yeah. And especially for someone who's been traumatized, your emotions are elevated more than the average person.
Yes.
Right?
Especially when you've been hurt a lot, because you feel like you always beat it.
Yes.
You feel like you're always just you against the world.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But then I had to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Mm-hmm. Some things are not about me.
Yeah. And actually, that's part of one of the principles that I have listed out.
Oh, yes, we got some principles today.
Yeah, and one of them, the second principle is find the truth.
Okay.
And that is your emotions, they're not fact checkers. Fact checkers. Your emotions do not tell you the truth.
Oh, I'm going to have to write that down.
And so when you're
real deep.
And so when you're going through your emotional healing process, there's a journey where you have to retrain your brain to be able to find the truth in every situation, because your emotions, they're there to let you know that something is off and wrong. There's a good piece of it, but what happens is, especially when you've gone through a lot of hurt, is that you end up putting on all those other experiences and
on top of it.
Right.
Yes, because when you're going through it, you thinking of this happened, that happened, you did this, you did that. Oh my God, that is so true.
So you have to go through, okay, what is true in this situation? Did this person actually hurt me, or am I thinking that this because of this other experience? And most of the times when we're going through our healing, a lot of it is that we project. And that's something that in my own journey, I got talked about, like, Kimir, I'm not that other person.
Right.
Stop it.
Right.
You know, this is not that relationship. Stop it.
You know what? And that is true, because I even had to say, look, that happened, but that's not this.
Exactly.
Chill out, Keisha.
Exactly.
Stop doing that. Stop taking stuff to heart. Yeah. That person ain't look at you like that because of this.
Right.
That person might have did it years ago, but that don't mean this person is doing it.
Exactly.
Let's talk about the principles.
Yeah, and it applies to everything. My first principle is transformation prayer.
Okay.
Right? And I say that because what happens is a couple of things. We've been hurt so much that we don't think that God is listening.
True.
Or we didn't get what we want, we have life disappointments. So we think God isn't there and he doesn't care about us.
Right.
But what I always encourage people to do is to kind of look through their prayer life with a different lens.
Right.
Right.
With a different lens. I like that.
And the first one is, instead of making it overly complicated, because I know when I was growing up, we was taught the Lord's Prayer.
Right.
You say this every day, da, 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 and then you pray your stuff.
Right.
And what happens is that it becomes very methodical. It becomes not heartfelt.
Right, right. It's like I'm just saying something like the Pledge of Allegiance.
Right.
Just something I'm supposed to say.
Right. Just to get me through the day, and so I can quasi feel good that I did something.
Right, right, right.
Yeah. And so what I try to encourage people to do in that transformation prayer is just to talk as if God is sitting next to you. And just to have a conversation. And it's amazing that once you start talking through things, you'll be able to get more at peace. And as you're talking through those things, coming up with what I said, the fact checkers.
Right.
Like looking at, okay, what is true? What is not true? Okay, God, help me to see the truth in this. God, I need your help. This is way over my head.
Way over my head.
And I need to calm down.
Right, right.
And I tell people all the time, like, I'm one of those kick and scream crybabies, throw myself on the floor type prayer person, because my emotions are so intense that I need to be able to process it.
Right.
And sometimes when I'm just rehashing over in my head, I'm not necessarily getting it out. And so that should be the first step, is like talk it through with God.
Talk it through. Okay.
And then the other thing that's really key, especially when you're dealing with disappointments and all those type of things, is to keep a journal and to look at the things where God
has brought you out of.
Not only brought you out, but what did he say no to? Because sometimes we think I'm supposed to get everything because I finally got myself in a good place. I finally surrendered. Now I'm supposed to get X, Y, and Z.
Wow. And you think that's what it's supposed to be.
Right. Because I prayed.
Be what you
and I'm being faithful.
Right.
And
I did everything you told me to do.
Yeah.
And how you said do it.
And it didn't happen.
Right.
And then you get mad at God.
Yeah.
And then you stop talking to him.
I've been there.
And you say, but God, you don't love me because you didn't answer X, Y, and Z. And so what I encourage people to do is keep a journal of those things that God said no to and revisit. Because when you go back to it, sometimes you begin to see the bigger picture.
Why you didn't get that.
Right. Because right now we don't see the big picture.
That's true.
It's really small.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like for me, like I'm like I said before, I'm an overachiever. Like I like to do a lot of different things. I like to receive stuff.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. It's like, God, I worked. I'm expecting my raise by the end of the year.
Yeah.
I did all this. I came in. I was on time. I was talking to people. I denied myself because I wanted to slap everybody, but I didn't. So by the end of the year, I'm supposed to get my raise.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But instead, by the end of the year, I got fired.
Ooh.
What do you do with that? So was God not listening?
Bitter.
Right. Did he not listen to me the whole time? Right? Well, I was trying to do all these things, make sure I was on top of my game.
Right.
Hey, well, I'm fired. Right?
Right.
And so I've experienced something similar where I thought I was supposed to be here at my job, and then at the end of the year, they, cut my pay.
Wow.
Yeah, depromoted. And I was like, what in the world?
Right.
I was being faithful.
Right.
But what God was trying to teach me was a couple of things. That year where I was doing me, trying to get to the top, I wasn't thinking about God. I was doing me. And so he was trying to tell me that, hey, everything you do got to go through me.
That's right.
And also, when all that stuff shifted, like when he was developing my character, helping me to mature, helping me to grow up,
right,
at the right time, he gave me a new job where I had to raise. But at the end of the year, I was hurting because I was like, God, this ain't what it's supposed to be. But the following year, it was much better because I matured in my outlook of who I needed to be for him.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
And so when we're in those situations, we don't see the bigger picture. We don't know that he's going to give us something better.
Right.
Because in this right now, hey.
That's all I see.
Yeah. And so I encourage people to write those things down. And you know what? You may not get the full picture that year.
Right, right.
But it may be the next year or the third or the fourth or fifth.
Right.
Because God, he always has a purpose. And if you're surrendered to his purpose and you're looking for his purpose, because sometimes we don't look.
Yeah, because sometimes we looking at our own purpose.
Right. But if we're looking for his purpose, he makes it clear. He's like, hey, no, you weren't ready for that.
That is so true.
You know, you would have taken all that money, did X, Y, and Z. You weren't ready.
Yeah, because I know with the fame that I wanted and things of that nature, it's certain people that I wanted to have back. Certain people like, oh, I'm going to do this for this person. I'm going to do that for that person. Yeah. God said, I didn't tell you to do that.
Yeah.
So how about I just shut it down and you don't get it and you can't give it to them.
Right. And then you mad.
Yeah, I was big mad.
Right. Because I did all this work.
Because I'm like, God, I know I'm good. I'm cute. So why didn't make it as a model? I can act my butt out. What happened to my I got all these nominees. Yeah. I can sing. I got what happened?
Right,
I ain't good enough.
Right.
What's up?
And then that's a very good perspective, or what I try to help people with as well, is because of those disappointments, we change who God has designed us to be.
Break it down for me.
Okay, because you said I know I can do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
But when this didn't work out, I started questioning that X, Y, and Z. I started thinking that
instead of me not being okay, I got you.
You started thinking that those are not God's gifts to you,
right?
Because you haven't been able to manifest them in the way that you thought they should be manifested. Right. So then you go on a different path,
right?
And then God was like, "Hey, that ain't the path I told you to go on. Bring it back." And I do that all the time because I'm an overachiever. So I'm expecting that if I did X, Y, and Z, I should get this result.
Right.
And God was like, but that result is not what I created you to be.
Okay, I got you.
But it doesn't mean that my gifts that I gave you are inaccurate. It doesn't mean that they don't have value.
Makes sense.
Right? And so what happens is we think, oh, I don't have value, so we start living our life without having value. And we reinforce that truth versus what is real truth. And thus it goes back to that fact checker.
Right.
What is true? I have these talents. God's given me these talents. It may not be manifested in the way that I want right now.
Right.
But it doesn't mean he made a mistake in creating me. It doesn't mean that his gifts that he gave me were an accident.
That's true, because I know a lot of people come to me and they're thinking they should be here or they should be there when they haven't put in the work. Or they haven't been faithful to the assignment. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because me and T. Jones, we talk about that all the time. People want to get up here in the studio and record songs, but you haven't practiced the lyrics.
I know.
You know,
sometimes I wish I was that talented. You know, like I wish I could hear that G key and know what I need to do. Right? But you have to learn the notes.
Hello, you gotta first learn the words too. You know, and it saddens. I know for him because he produce all this other stuff, and me, I just help. This is what you should do, and let me show you where to go and get it. You know, that it's like we're taking away their dream,
right?
And you can't take away something that is yours.
You can't take away something that God gave you.
Right. Yeah. But you got to do the work.
Yeah. And being faithful that God's plan is still true for your life.
Now, when you say being faithful to that, that's being consistent and not going left or right on that pattern, right?
Yeah.
Because that's another thing that I wanted to ask you, because the young lady was asking, how long do you suppose to stay on that path of knowing this is for you before you decide to do it? Now, that was on down. That was on the other questions, but since we done touched it now, because this is something that's very relevant, and it's so great that you're the first show in 2020 because people's mindset has to be ready.
Yeah. And I will say this. I am not the best person in this area. I'll be honest.
You may not be the best in your eyes, but you're very well qualified to be the best in ours.
I appreciate that. I appreciate it. And the reason why I say that is because my natural instinct of being an overachiever sometimes try to hijack me. Right?
And that's the human side.
Right.
That's
so the human side is say, come here, you done this, you tired, stop it. Right? You don't need to keep going.
That's what I had tried to tell myself several times.
Yeah. And for me, I've been very lucky because, again, when I talked about looking for God's purpose, when you seek him, he will be found.
Yeah, he sure will.
And in him finding you, he will guide you back to what is his truth. And so I've wondered many times and for years, and I say that in the sense of the nonprofit. Okay, my nonprofit, this is something that's been a passion in my life since my first breakdown when in my 20s.
Gotcha.
Because I learned like little tricks and tools of, this actually works. And to be able to encourage people through their journey because it's hurtful.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was by myself. I felt alone. I felt, kind of thrown in the trash, so to speak. And I was like, I don't want someone else to have that same experience, right?
Right.
And so in my 20s, I said, okay, one day I'm going to do X, Y, and G, and I'm going to help people to work through their emotional healing journey.
I love it.
Right?
I love it.
But I'm in my 40s.
Right.
And it's just starting to manifest.
And that goes back to when I did the live about your season and when it's your timing.
Exactly.
Highlight from podcast number 43, A New You, episode 7, Living a Vibrant Life.
We have Miss Kamir Baker in the building, you guys. I'm so honored to have her back on the show. And she will be back, y'all. She coming back. She's part of the family, so she can't leave us too long. Now, you guys, today we're talking about basically, I would say just getting to know yourself on a different level.
Yeah.
Is that what safe to say, Miss Baker?
Yeah, because you want your new year to be a year vibrant.
Yes. Yeah. And we want to get into these principles.
Yes.
Can we get into those?
Yes.
Okay.
So we've talked about 2 so far. The first one was transformation prayer.
Right.
Actually, we did it out of order. But the first one in the 4 principles is the transformation prayer.
Okay.
And that is being able just to have a conversation with God, working through your disappointments, seeing where you've come from, and connecting with him on a different level.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
The second one in the 4 principles is finding the truth. Your emotions are not fact checkers. That is so tough to say. But anyways, so that's the second principle. And again, these 2 applies to everything that you do in terms of just being a human being.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the third principle is be your best cheerleader.
Ooh, yeah.
And this principle deals with self-care. It deals with learning who you are, because we talked about, God's gifts. They never change. They're always with you. Just because things don't work out,
right?
That's still what he gave you to be and do.
Be your best cheerleader. I love that.
Yeah, and so one of the things that I encourage people to do, which most people don't do because it's work, and people don't like to do work, is what I call I am statements. And in those I am statements, like for me, it took me a long time to find my I am statements and believe them. Okay. And my I am statements are, I'm beautiful.
Oh, I love it.
I'm intelligent.
Yes.
I'm loved.
Yes.
And those were the 3. And those 3, they're hard to admit to at times. Yeah. Because everything else is telling you, oh no.
It's funny that you say that because those are my affirmations. Yes. One thing, Miss Jones, my boss man's wife, she really, really helped me so much in 2019 deal with that because she said, you don't give yourself enough props. Exactly. And I'm like, huh? Yes. I've always been confident. I've always this. She said, yes. She said, but you'll glorify somebody else. But Keisha Simone, you're amazing. And it's just like, I think you forget it sometimes. Yeah. And I'm like, do I? For real. I'm always trying to upgrade and elevate. I never really focus on, this girl, you good, And so I did the list, and even T. Jones back in 2017, 2018, when I first started the station, at the end of the year, he was like, you need to put affirmations on mirrors. Yep. And that's what I read every morning. Yep. So it's funny you say that. Very good point.
And when you're doing that, you being your best cheerleader.
Yes. Because you're telling it and you're feeding your mind. I love it.
Yes. And you're connecting with who you are as an individual. You're connecting with who you are as God created you to be and not what society has told you to be.
Right.
Yeah. And so, again, most people don't do it because it's difficult for them to find the good in themselves.
That's true.
Because it's very easy to find,
especially if that's all you hear.
Exactly.
If you're continuing to hear that, that's what you feel.
And that's why the people that I've worked with, the women that I've counseled and encouraged, I'd say about 10% actually do this assignment.
Only 10%?
Yes, it's very small.
That's like 10 out of 100.
Yes, it's very small. Because it requires you to shift how you perceive and think of yourself.
It also requires you to think.
Yeah.
We don't like thinking too much.
No.
Because that's one of them negative attitudes. And
exactly.
You get to remembering stuff.
Because again, it's easier to blame somebody.
Drop the mic.
Right? It is.
Drop the mic.
It's easier to fuel that
than
and blame somebody to face
right.
the fact.
Yeah, then to fuel the good that's in you and to produce more good.
Okay.
Because when you're fueled with the other stuff, you're producing more crazy.
Cray.
Right.
Yeah.
That's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
But if you're walking around and you say, hey, I'm beautiful.
I got this.
Right. Oh, I'm intelligent.
I'm smart. I'm strong.
Oh, I'm loved.
You know what? You just bringing so much. I ain't got to all the stuff, y'all. I'm gonna get to y'all questions. I promise. That means you did. Girl, we got 20 minutes. When you said a comment that stuck with me the last time, I should have wrote it down. You were talking about basically what you used to tell yourself even when you got outside and you felt bad. Mm-hmm. Could you go back over that and tell why did you come to that? It's something you said.
I was talking about meditating on God's truth.
Yes. Yeah. We were talking about the meditation because I was just like, I don't even know how to meditate. Yeah. But I'm so focused on my strength and rebuilding my character is the stage that I'm in my life at this point. And a lot of people don't understand that, but you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, and in that previous interview, because you were asking me, how were you able to get to that next place in your journey? Yes. And how were you able to connect with God? Yes. And I was like, some people do it differently. They may paint, they may go outside. And for me, I needed to have his word and repeat it over and over. Like those scriptures about being wonderfully made. Yes. Those scriptures that, his love continues and they're new every morning. Give me a scripture. I think it's Lamentations 3:16. I think that's it. Where his love is new every morning. Like, even though I may feel like crap, even though life has been beating me up, like his love is still there. And it doesn't cease because of what is going on around you. And so I needed to meditate on that because I didn't feel loved. Yeah. I felt like dirt. Right. And so I needed to know that someone else loved me in a good way. A healthy way. Sincere love. Yeah. Yeah. Not just love because they may get something out of you. Right. And so I had to repeat those scriptures and been wonderfully made. I think that's Psalm 139, something like that. And just even recently in my own life, yesterday, I spent time with God and he gave me my theme scriptures for the year. And in those theme scriptures, it talked about continually to seek his face. I love it. It talked about that he's with me, that I don't have to give into fear. Like he's going to walk me through where my enemies are trying to attack me. And woo! Say that again. He's going to walk me through when enemies are trying to attack me. I love it. And I believe that's Psalm 27 because I just did it yesterday. Okay. And so those are the things where, again, you have to infuse, and that's where that truth is coming in. You have to replace that old truth with good truth. Yes. And we all know that even though people argue about the Bible, but at the end of the day, the Bible don't change. It sure don't. So, God don't change. He's saying what my girl to say yesterday, today, and forevermore, I believe. Yeah, so you will always be able to find those scriptures. You can always go back to those things to reiterate and breathe life into yourself. Yeah. Yes. It doesn't change. I love it. And one thing that I love about it is that when you're giving these scriptures, they can always go, because I just looked up Psalms 27 and I was just looking and that was the first thing came up. The Lord is my light and my salvation. And sometimes you get so in a dark place, because I know in this industry, it's very tough. Don't I know? And I know you and I both know, and a lot of people that are trying to get into the industry, I let them know you got to have thick skin. Yeah, you do. And I give tests. When I do the workshop, I'll talk to them crazy. They'll come early and think that it's just in it, and I'll make them run. You know what I'm saying? Not make, but I'll be like, well, let's just go run. Let's go jog. And they're like, but I'm here for an acting course. Right. I just see where your head is. Right. Because when you're dedicated, you're dedicated. Right. Now, if I say go hop on one leg, you got to have some standards for yourself. Okay, Keisha Smart, I didn't come for this. Right. That's what I'm looking for. I'm not expecting you to go hop on one leg. Yeah. But those tests are so weird because this industry is weird. Yeah, it is. Yeah, because in my youth, I wanted to be a producer like T-Bone. Yes. And you would have been a good one because you're strict and you're very stern. Well, yeah, but the industry is not necessarily a God industry. True. And I had prayed, I was like, God, if I'm going to lose my mind. Because, I wrestled through addictions. Right. And I was like, if I'm going to be in a situation where I'm going to end up in more darkness, shut it down. And he did. And he did, because I was promoting a young artist, and I was so excited. I was sending out their stuff, but this artist had one song that I said, don't play.
It was one song that went against my own conscience because how I talked about God. And I knew it wasn't true. And I was like, don't play this song. All the other songs on there are great. Play the other ones. And I remember the first radio station I got to play that song or play her records,
They played that song.
And I said, dang it. And so that was it. That ended my career. Because I was like, well, first of all, you knew you weren't supposed to be promoting anyways. Right? But you thought you could kind of go around it.
Yeah, you try to adjust what you
trying to work it out. You massage it. but at the end of the day, I had no control.
Yeah.
I can't control the other person.
Yeah, you can only control yourself.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, God, you showed me.
But that goes back to what you were saying too in the last interview. And you guys, if you didn't hear our last interview, please go back. I'll share the dates and things of that nature online, but please go back. When it says, make sure that you remember when you said, make sure your walk is right. And then that other one, don't focus on,
a much better memory than I do.
I do. I like when stuff sticks with me because I focus on that. Because when you're looking at your lane and you're straightening your car and you're doing things, you're not paying attention to them. And that's one thing that a lot of people got to do. Stay in your lane.
Yeah. and that was actually the fourth principle.
Hey, I don't even know. Y'all have not read any of these principles. Let me say that. I have not read anything. She hasn't shared anything.
Yeah.
This is just confirmation and God is real.
Yeah. And in the fourth principle, you're like, how's that connect? I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
It's discover your purpose.
Discover your purpose. Okay.
Right. And it's finding out things that you love to do, what comes easily to you, and do something once or twice a year, once or twice a month where you're doing that. And you're going to feel more fulfilled. You're going to be more excited.
Like he said, he worked the day after Christmas, but he's doing what he loves.
Right.
So it was nothing.
Right. And why that's key and how that relates to the previous one is that when you're doing your purpose, you're not fixated on someone else's.
Hello.
Right?
Hello.
And you're staying in your
lane.
And you're not comparing to the other person. Because you're figuring out what you enjoy and you're going after it.
That's right.
And when you do that, God's going to bring the right people to you.
That's right. That's right. That is so true.
Yeah. So those are the four principles that you can apply in anything in your life, and especially in this new season, because what happens, we come in and we have these grandiose ideas of what we want to do, what we want to be.
Yeah.
And we do it every year.
That's why I don't even look at, it's 2020. No, I started last year.
Yeah.
You got to do it every day because after 2020, then what? You going to stop?
Yeah. And then what happens is because you're not getting the results, you eventually do stop.
You do.
But if you put these four principles in practice, sometimes you're going to be good. Sometimes you're not going to do well. It varies.
Right.
But when you can walk through and you keep doing it, you're going to see change. You're going to see a happier you.
Yep. You're going to see progress.
Yes. And you're going to enjoy life again.
Yes.
And you're not just consumed with trying to survive.
Mm-hmm. You're going to have to start living. Because, a lot of people die. Well, not a lot. Everybody going to die.
Right.
But nobody really acknowledges the living part.
Exactly.
You have just listened to highlights where we delve into living a purposeful and vibrant life. Join us next week as we discuss tools and tips revealed from this episode that we can put into practice in our everyday lives.